Start on me? Fine. Yep. Oh my gosh. What's happening, everybody? How are you guys? You're probably noticing I'm not Andrew. I never have been Andrew. My papa's middle name was Andrew. That's as close as I've ever been to an Andrew, besides how close I'm sitting with Andrew Tillotson today. Hey, we're switching up roles. We're going to keep you guys on your toes. No template for what's happening. I'm getting the chance to drive a little bit today and play the host role just to shake things up with you guys. Our hope is to continue to shake things up week to week so that there's not really this sameness. I'd hate for you guys to wonder if this is something where we just recorded 50 of these and each week we post one or more. That's absolutely not the case. These are fresh and new each
every week.
Day. If you have not joined us for what's happening before, I'm just going to catch you up. What's happening usually happens midweek. Wednesday's an example of that, where we talk about what's happening. That's the name. We talk about what's coming up, what's going on at Water's Edge Church. And then we talk about the previous Sunday's message and what it meant for us, what that scripture means, some of our thoughts associated with it. And it's a perfect opportunity for not only for us to talk about our experience in last week's message and what's going on at the church, a little bit about ourselves. We usually take a little bit of time to talk about ourselves, but at the same time, it's a perfect opportunity for you to jump in the chat and tell us what you loved about a message clip that we'll show you, or what you loved about Sunday's message specifically, to chime in on that front. This is not a one-way conversation. This is back and forth, and Andrew's going to do a better job than I do as co-host in seeing what the comments are so that we can respond to those. Keep in mind, guys, give us a little grace. There's a little bit of a delay.
So, a little bit.
So when I say I'm 7 feet tall, it's going to take about a minute for someone to go ha 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 in the chat because I'm 8 feet tall. I just wanted to let you know, in my own mind at least. Before we jump into talking a bit about ourselves, right, and jumping into the message clips, I'd love to just talk about a few things real quick. I hate to go through a video, whether that be a daily devotional on our online Facebook community in the morning or one of these, without talking about the growth track.
Yes.
So what is the growth track? I'm just going to tell a little story. The growth track is a way that we, as a church, communicate to you the things we've always done and already do for you and your family. And here's what we believe. We believe that these 4 steps of the growth track, these 4 things we're focused on as a part of the growth track, will not only change you and the way you live your life, will not only change your family and the way they live their lives, but I believe will only more closely align your heart and your mind and your spirit with what God wants for you and your family. Again, none of this stuff is out of alignment with what you expect from a church or would expect from a life of faith. It perfectly lines up with what we believe is God's will for you and your family. This is just the tool we use to introduce it. Yeah. Now, it's also, I would say, and Andrew, maybe you can tell a quick story associated with this, I think a really healthy discipleship tool.
Oh, yeah.
A way for you to grow in your faith. And I'll give a personal example, then I'll defer to you. You can tell a story if you want. But I think there's... in my experience, and I've been in tune with the growth track since we launched it a few years ago. every time I watch the videos that Pastor Stu's associated with, every time I participate in the growth track, God teaches me something more about the way I live my life, about my faith, about how I live on mission with my church. And it's wild because every time I go through it, there's something new. And that's not unlike God's truth. There's something new and refreshing for me, whether that be in Make a Difference, which is the fourth step, or Know Jesus, which is the first step. Each one of those, there's a little bit more that I learn and pushes me to grow in my faith as a part of it. Can you think of a story?
Well, definitely. You know how much I love to talk about step 2, but for this one, I want to talk about step 3, connect with others, because I just went through it on, Sunday, this last Sunday. I had the opportunity of being part of our live growth track. And I saw the willingness and eagerness to get in groups. So people were so passionate about like connecting with each other. And I just think about in my own life how appreciative, how grateful I am for the group that I'm in and both of the groups I'm in. And it just made me think about it in a new light and recognize that I'm not alone in this journey. You know, it sometimes feels like it's you against the world. It's you again, and it's maybe a little bit disconnected at times. And now these groups allow you to just recenter yourself and really get back connected and focused on what's important, because they provide just the best perspectives. It's fresh perspectives and people that have your best interest at heart. So I just love my groups, and I like step 3 because it emphasizes that.
Well, I know we're stepping into a season where there are definitely a few summer groups going on, and we're moving towards our fall groups launch, which is the bigger groups launch left this year. But it's so right. We were talking about this before before we went live, and I'll make a joke, but then I'll tell a story associated with the joke. So things are larger the closer you get to them, right? Like you could say that in a vehicle sense, objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. That's not really what I mean. But the closer you are to something, we were sitting here and looking at the cameras and all the setup and like, man, it seems, is it bigger or am I smaller? And I think Andrew's response was, I think we're just closer to it. And I say that to you guys, it's obvious, right? The closer you are to something, the bigger it is. Well, the same is true of God. The closer you are to him, the bigger he is. Does that make sense? In our lives, sometimes we feel desperate, we feel anxiety, we feel loneliness, we feel concern, and it's because the distance between us and God, because of our own doing, not God's. He's not done pursuing us. He's not moved at all. We're too far from him. We've made God too small. God does not shrink in size. It's our distance from him that creates our perspective as to how big he is. I think, bringing it fully around, you're like, okay, where's the story going, TJ? I don't know. But I think in this context, one of the ways we stay close to God is by experiencing God through others. God, the commission, right, is to first and foremost love God and then love others. And if we don't surround ourselves with the others, we can't complete that task. Right. But I've learned more about who God is by surrounding myself with others in the way that they see him. It definitely brings me closer to him.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I just want to take just a quick minute to say hello, because I see so many people commenting. So just hi, Sarah. Hi, Dowd. Edmund, I saw you. Joseph, I see in here. And Betsy, I just thank you for joining us. And if you want to comment along at any time, feel free. Like, I encourage it. We want to hear from you. This is supposed to be a connection. You know, we're not doing this to tell ourselves what's happening, right?
We already know.
We're in it, you know? We want you to know what's happening.
Yeah.
So comment along, and we can't wait to see you in the chat. I'll be checking it throughout the entire time.
So second quick thing I just wanted to mention before we move on to the other stuff is if you aren't a part of our online Facebook community, whether you attend on Sunday mornings in person or online, you got to jump in and be a part of our online Facebook community. This is one of the ways that we encourage people to live out this faith, this walk, this way every day of the week. Here's what we know. Life is 24/7. Faith is the same. So I would encourage you guys to just text the word Facebook to 36769. Or to be honest, go to Facebook, go to the Water's Edge Church page, go to the groups section, find the online Facebook community and jump in. We will welcome you. There's content that we provide every day, specifically to the online Facebook community. One example of that I think is a really tight-knit gathering of people is this little gathering that happens every weekday, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, which is daily devotionals. It's the only place where you can get those, and it's such a great way to start your day off with a first fruits mindset, giving God your best and first to start the day off with daily devotionals. So let's do this. Let's talk really quickly about your weekend.
Okay.
Our weekend, and then we'll jump into our first clip. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
Give me the top 3 things that happened Memorial Day weekend in any order. It cannot be in order. It does not have to be in order of sequence or chronological order or preference. And you could start with one, and then I'll go. We'll go back and forth. One great thing that happened.
One great thing was I got to bond with some friends over a game of golf. So,
nice.
And I did this on a military base, Fort Eustis.
Okay.
And we heard taps. Military men stood there and turned and dropped the clubs, and so I really felt like I was actually participating in Memorial Day, and also having a great time playing golf with my friends Ken and Sam. So that was number one definitely. Number 2 would have been I like to work. I don't know why, but I'm so passionate about what we're doing here at the church. And so number 2 would have been reaching out to everybody on Saturday, connecting with, of course, Daim. I hope to see you in the chat some point. So I really enjoy talking to them. And then 3 would have been seeing my mom and spending time with her, getting to enjoy some time and celebrate Memorial Day, talking with her about my grandfather's service in World War II. We really try as a family to remember,
it's so important.
Memorialize. So that would be my highlights.
Okay, I'll cheat. My number 1, and this is going to transition perfectly into our conversation here in a second, was watching this young group of communicators take their steps. Yeah, I totally took the best one. I don't know. I mean, the chat, you guys, I think we broke a record in the chat on Sunday, especially on Facebook, with the amount of positive feedback that everyone watching gave with regards to Taylor and Phil and Savannah's first sermon ever between the 3 of them, and it gave me such excitement for the potential of the church that will exist when I don't. I'll always exist, but you guys get what I'm saying. Or I could say that the church that will exist when my hairline doesn't. I don't know which is going to go first, me or the hairline. But just such exciting potential. I always measure the health of a church by its next generation. The vision of the church by the speed of its young leaders, and we have so many great young staff, young volunteers, young participants that are connected to what we're doing. But those 3 are, I think, a perfect example of how exciting the future of Water's Edge Church is, how exciting the future of our faith is at the same time, too. I'll tell a little joke for my number 2. Not a lot on Monday. Our family's very busy between my work and my wife's work and our ministry together and life. And so Monday was a very short list of things. So we went to the mall for a few hours, and I don't think we did anything else substantial, which I absolutely love. I love to take a day and it's not true Sabbath, but just let's not put a lot of things on our list. We didn't even cook. We celebrated Memorial Day by going to Papa Nacho's Mexican restaurant. But it was good. It was good. So it seems strange to say one of the most exciting parts of the weekend was not a lot on Monday. But the story, when I woke up for Memorial Day, in my head it was, hey, we're going to do very little. In Sarah's head, it was, we're going to do a whole lot. And so we did more than I wanted, but I think the note for me before the 4th of July is a week before, hey, can we just set parameters for what the 4th of July is going to be? Because I don't want to wake up with, gosh, I don't have anything on my list, to now I've got 3 things on my list, and some of them are fairly substantial. So I think that was a miss.
Was it a honey-do list?
It was kind of a... I need it done in the next hour list. And some of the stuff were only things that I could do. So it was very clearly.
You thought you had a day off.
Yeah, I thought it was, but it was still pretty darn chill. My third thing is always got to be about food. It's always got to be about food.
Of course.
So I'm trying to think what's the thing
Skinny
that...
man talks about food.
That's exactly right. No, I don't eat it. I just look at it and comment on it. I had 2 good steaks.
Oh,
so
nice.
We ended up, if you have a Publix near you, you're fortunate. On Saturday, we were up in Williamsburg, and anytime we're near Publix, my wife has to go. She absolutely loves Publix. And so we splurged. It's almost like a trip to Wegmans if you've ever been to one. It's kind of like you could see yourself, date night, honey. What do you want to do? Publix? How about you? Yeah. And so my wife spoiled me with a 2-pound bone-in ribeye that I cooked that evening.
And don't you cook them in a particular way? I heard you're a really good cook when it comes to steak.
I'm pretty good. I'm okay. I mean, I like it.
Not to say you aren't in other places, but steak in particular.
I'll be honest, like a 1-pound steak, nothing. No big deal. It's no big deal. 2 pounds, I got halfway in and started sweating. Like I felt like I was on a game show or something, and so I pushed through. It was a bone in, so I cut the bone out. And the weird thing was, on Tuesday morning, Tuesday morning was heading to work, and the bone had to have been tasty enough to push an animal of some kind to lift the lid of our trash, dig in the trash to find the bone, lower the lid, put the bone on top of the trash, feast on the bone, like pick it clean, and then just leave it as evidence.
Oh my goodness.
And so I like to imagine it was some crazy squirrel. I think it was probably a raccoon, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
No
bears?
No, I don't think there's any bears near us. A trash panda is a raccoon, right? Those are both the same thing.
Yeah, because they have the
panda.
thumbs. You know, the opposable thumbs.
Yeah, I think it had to have been a raccoon. I like to imagine it was a raccoon. But we came out and I was like, it must have been a very good steak because nature agreed. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was enough. I hope you guys had a great Memorial Day weekend. Let's do this. We're gonna push to the first clip, and then Andrew and I will be back to share our thoughts on the impact it had on us. So.
Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. In this passage, Jesus is pretty clear on what our purpose is. 1, love God, and 2, love others as yourself. If you've been with us for a while, you've probably heard our lead pastor say this phrase, you were made on purpose for a purpose. And a lot of times we hear that phrase, but we allow our circumstances to keep us from stepping towards our purpose.
Man, oh man, I don't know about you, Andrew. I would say you start. When you think about, love God, love others, or the quote of Pastor Stu from Discover Your Purpose Growth Track, check it out, is you were made on purpose for a purpose. When you hear those words, or think about that section where Phil delivered his portion of the message, what is it? How does it hit you?
I think the one thing that I think about is that how beautiful it is that God makes it simple to follow him and to understand his will and what he wants us to do. Because if you look at that section of where that verse is in the Bible, Jesus is addressing the Sadducees and the Pharisees, right?
Yeah.
Those people who think they know everything. And they're like, I got you on this one.
Yeah.
What's the greatest commandments, Jesus? And he responds by simplifying basically 5 books of the first 5 books of our Bible into 2 commandments, 2 sentences. Love your neighbor and love God first, right? And then love your neighbor as yourself. And I think it's like he wants us to understand who he is and understand what he wants for us. And in that same way, I think he provides tools in discipleship moments, people in our lives to help guide us, to show us what our purpose on this earth is supposed to be. And Step 2 of the growth track helped me with that. So that's what I think about when I hear those verses that Phil just really did a great job delivering. What about you?
Yeah, my brain always goes to try to distill it further, right? And so when I think about what's living in the antithesis of love God and love others, and 2 words come to mind, pride and selfishness. And I think if you can name for me, I'm not saying throw it in the chat, we don't have to get dismal with this, but if you think of all of the world's or all of humanity's greatest problems, I think they reside in pride and selfishness, pride and or
100%.
selfishness. And so you're right, it's a very simple thing. Love God, first and foremost, love God, love others. Very simple thing to say. Very hard thing, obviously, to do. But it's so it echoes so deep in that when I think about my worst moments, the moments where I was short of the mark, right? I was sinful in my nature. It's usually a love of oneself. That's at the core of it. Again, pride and selfishness. And so to say that we were, that second statement, that we were made for a purpose on purpose would be to say we weren't made to be prideful. Right. We weren't made to be selfish. And when we are, we're falling short of the mark, or we're living a life of sin. And I think that's a huge challenge. And I really think, regardless of how much church background you have coming in, if you can live out those two ways, that one way, but those two steps, I think you'll be living a life that others are drawn to,
definitely,
and naturally want to be a part of too.
Yeah.
So
no, I love that you just boiled that down. I had never thought about that. But you're right. It is a plague on our society and and the things that you can really boil it down to, like you said, pride and selfishness. And I mean, for me, I always fall into the pitfall of selfishness. Prioritizing. Yeah. Myself.
I was going to mention that to you.
And
I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, it's true though. When I think about my worst moments, not all 100%. The time. It's always selfishness, not really pride. And it's true that you can overcome that. You can if you just live your life for God, focusing on others. And that's what I love that the Bible teaches us. Do you want to roll to number 2?
Yeah. Before we move to this clip, though, let me just say, if Phil's watching, and if Phil's not watching, but you know Phil Maher, congratulations. You did awesome. We're so proud of you. Can't wait to see you take your next step in this journey as a young leader. And Andy Stanley says this, so it has to be true. Uncommunicated gratitude is the same as ingratitude. So if you know Phil, if he's a Facebook friend, or you are at the Newport News campus on Sunday and you haven't told Phil directly, you did awesome. Don't assume everyone else has, and don't assume he knows. Take the step to communicate gratitude to Phil in this instance for that. But let's roll the second clip, and then we will we'll get right back together again.
Let's do it.
Obedience is the key to unlocking what God has planned for your life. Now, you just heard Phil talk about purpose and that God has a purpose for your life. And I believe that's true for my life, for your life, and for Phil's. God has a purpose. But if you want to unlock the purpose, you have to keep stepping towards obedience. Solomon, the wisest man to have ever lived, says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight." Now, this doesn't mean that everything's going to work out in your favor. Everything that you want to happen is going to work out. But you can know that in the most difficult times and in the best times, that he will be near.
Yeah.
Woo.
That hits.
Okay, you go.
Yeah.
I could tell it's right there. It's right at the tip of your tongue. You're ready to jump into this.
Well, I gotta follow in your leadership style and just say, everybody in the chat, if you could just give a warm shout out and just say what you thought about Taylor's sermon right there.
Great.
But for me, I just want to say, great job, right?
Yeah.
Like you blew it out of the water. You hit a home run, and I'm sure your dad was so proud. So just thank you. I know I learned something from your sermon, and when you talk about he'll be there in your worst and in your best moments, that's so true. It's easy to sometimes forget about how many times the Lord has shown up, and I think that's when we sing that song. It's that new one. You are. Oh man, I'm forgetting it right on the spot. It's you are more than able. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. And so
it just came to us. There was no embedding that helped.
So you are more than able. It starts off. The lyrics begin with how did I forget about all the times you've come through, And that's something that I love to keep the perspective on. And it's easy to forget, and it's easy to not remember all the times. And I think the Israelites did it right in the Bible, when you see like he led them out of Egypt and they still doubted. You know, they always had these doubts, and we have these doubts too, even after he's come through in such incredible ways. So I love that she was able to point our hearts towards that, to keep our perspective strong. But what about you? What did you think?
Well, the big word for me with Taylor's section was obedience, right? Obedience, and that's a tough word for a lot of people. And I think to be obedient is not popular anymore.
No.
Especially when you think about, I mean, and this has been true since the 70s, 60s, 70s, and we're talking about 50 years of people pushing back against authority.
The man.
Yeah, and you think it's wild to think about the importance of putting an obedient posture in your life, and not just submitting to God's authority, but following His way.
It doesn't come natural.
But again, if you think about step one with Phil, how do you love God, put that first, love God, yet not be obedient to His will and His way in your life? It would be to say one thing and to do another, right? It's a lack of integrity. I always take I don't know why it's today, but obedience, there's another word to me. And so obedience, I think about the word integrity, obedience, integrity. And I know, I'll just use my kids as an example. I know, especially my older kids, I know that they are following their dad's way when they do what I've asked them to do, even when I'm not looking, right? They've done what they know their dad's heart would want for them to do, even when I'm not around. And so when you've got a 26-year-old who outweighs you by 30 pounds and is 5 inches taller than you, could carry you to bed at night. I love it for Christmas time. He just carries me into bed and lays me down. Good night, Papa.
Funny.
He doesn't do that. But it's I love it when he calls me and he's wrestling with a problem, but he's already done what he thought was the solution, and it was exactly what I would have told him to do if he did it, and the advice was good. It's tension to be a dad and give advice when it's bad advice, but good advice, and he does the good thing, especially in intentions. That speaks to the one level deeper than just being obedient and living a life of integrity. And so you said it earlier, and you stole my thunder to some degree, but I want to celebrate. This is a senior in high school,
right,
who delivered a message to almost 100,000 live viewers and in-person viewers this week.
Amazing.
I'm sure when we were all seniors in high school, we at least once delivered a message on a stage to almost 100,000 people across the globe. I'm sure we all have that experience. It's humbling to think about the impact that Taylor's voice will have on lives for what could be generations to come. A very bright future. And then I'm old enough to be Taylor's dad, and then some. And so I just want to say, job well done, Pastor Stu and Tab. Taylor can't deliver that message if her parents hadn't built such a firm foundation in her faith that she could leverage that and have an abundance of love of God to deliver such a powerful message at the same time too. The first two people I congratulated on Sunday were Pastor Stu and Tab in the afternoon, knowing how proud they must have been of their daughter in that moment. And then I told Tab that there were Tab moments in Taylor's message, little moments where I was like, oh my gosh, that's her mom, which is also really honoring too. When someone says, oh my gosh, your son acts just like you, that's a deeper level of influence you have on your child than just them following the rules. Okay, we're running.
One thing you said, how bright of a future she had, and that's one thing that I loved about people in the chat online. They were saying that exact thing. It was so many people, like over 100. That were saying how bright of a future Taylor has, and how amazing it was that she was able to perform so well at such a young age. Yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you for chatting along. I see you, Edmund, and I see you, Dowd. And I just want to say thank you for all the people who were following along in the chat.
For sure. Well, let's watch this next clip.
How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Take note of how honest David is with God about how he's feeling. He's not holding back, even if it may be uncomfortable to have such an honest conversation with God.
Wow.
Yeah, so right there, Savannah, in my opinion, was so transparent, relatable, and just was honest that it showed like a personal connection, or allowed for us to have that personal connection. I felt so happy and excited to see her on stage, but also so in awe of the teaching that she had. She did such a great job, and just that portion of the sermon right there, you know, what comes to my mind is just that it's okay sometimes to feel like it's like, man, this is not the best moment. It's okay to recognize the ruts, and realize though that, like, even though you feel far from God, I think David knew in his heart that God was still on his side.
Yeah.
You know, and it's about having that honest connection, really speaking out to your Lord. I mean, why would you hide anything from the God that created you? You know, he can see your inner thoughts and inner workings, and knows your plan for your life, knows every step you will take, every strain of hair on your head, given I have just a little bit. He doesn't have much to count, but he's like, look, I know what's best for you. And I just think that when we're not honest, when we try and hide from God, it separates us, and it doesn't work, you know. What about you? Have you ever tried?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on where my brain was too. You know, why aren't we honest with God in our prayers?
Yeah.
Right? Why aren't we honest with God in He knows our heart. He knows what we're thinking before we even say it, whether we say it out loud or we say it in our head to Him in our prayers. I think it's so important that we are as authentic with God in our prayers, our conversations with Him, as we would anyone.
Yeah.
I definitely think there are times, and I'll just speak for myself, there are times that I feel more comfortable being fully honest with my wife about who I am and the way I think, or how my day went, or how something made me feel, or whatever that is, than I am to God. And God hears me both times.
Yeah.
And God already knows not only what I said or what was said to me, but the motivation of the people involved at the same time too.
Right.
And I'll add another mix to it. This is not specific to that point, but Pastor Stu has taught this a few times, and I just want to encourage you guys. When you pray, we just said this, be authentic, be honest, be real. God knows it anyways.
Right.
And not only that, he knows what you're going to pray for before you even pray it. And He wants that level of relationship with you. But I think second, make sure that as you pray a little bit out loud. Because again, you can pray in silence and have a really robust conversation with God. But when you pray out loud, two things are true. One, it moves from being true to real. It moves from being truth to reality. That made noise. It's almost like if you pray in the forest and no one's there to hear you, do you make a sound? Yeah, you do. The second reason, the enemy can't hear your thoughts, but he can hear your prayers when you pray them out loud. And if you walk around your house tonight because you feel a difficult spirit in your home, and you think that you want that spirit out, it's not going to go anywhere. You've got to say those words out loud. Have you ever heard someone say, "Oh my gosh, so and so made this bad decision"? Now, have you ever seen a video of someone making that bad decision? Which one's more impactful in your life? When something moves from true to real, it becomes an anchor that you can leverage towards positive change.
Right.
I just want to encourage you, like I pray most often in the mornings when I'm at the gym, on an elliptical at the Honeycutt YMCA. Come and see me. 5:30 in the morning. Why not?
Okay.
And I usually pray in silent when I'm there, but when I'm in the car is my time usually to pray out loud, and it's usually for the other drivers on the road. I'm just kidding. It's usually for my driving, or my wife's praying next to me about my driving. But it's just make out loud prayer a part of your ritual. God won't judge you for the words that you're saying. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to be articulate. You don't have to go nuts. Just be you. Be authentically you. And I think the opportunity to take your relationship with God to the next level by being open and authentic is really important too. So I know we've run crazy long. This is what happens when TJ runs the show. But before we go, what's one nugget of that you're going to anchor it? What was the one nugget from the weekend? And what are you most excited for this weekend?
Yeah. So I should have definitely said that sermon was one of the highlights because golf and family, that is important. I just was not contemplating. It's almost like those are just held separately. But that one thing that I really took home from this sermon was really stepping forward boldly, confidently, and obediently, but knowing in our hearts that it's going to be the best outcome when we are more obedient. Really, what challenged me from each one of them was identifying the one thing in my life that I need to maybe work on and really challenge myself to be more obedient. What does that look like? It looks like getting up in the morning and starting running. Starting to honor my body as a temple and not really being lazy with it. And secondly, just being honoring in relationships, really trying to focus in on the one relationship right now that's giving me a lot of problems. And I'm just trying to,
I get it.
No, not at all. It's this just one person that I see every day, and I want to be kind. I want to show love and Jesus to them. And it's just a very hard challenge for me at this moment. So it really picked, like, that was in my mind the entire sermon, where I was like, this is what the Lord is challenging me to do. Be boldly obedient and loving him and serving him by showing love to this man. Yeah. So that was the one thing. And the one thing I'm looking forward to, Pastor Stu being back on stage. Not that I love the young communicators, but I miss him. And also just the sermon as a whole. Like, I would like to see how this starts to conclude, and how we can start to see more ways that we can start having our life feel more like a piece of cake.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, mine wasn't directly related to the message. I'll be quick, but when I was listening to Taylor and Phil and Savannah deliver their message, I took a step back and just realized that I wouldn't be able to receive this gift if Pastor Stu hadn't been willing, as a leader, an inspired leader, to delegate a responsibility to others. But here's the thing. If you don't know Pastor Stu, then you might not realize this. He loves the job that he has on stage on Sunday mornings. We all benefit from his giftedness, how uniquely skilled and wired he is to deliver relevant and easy to apply and effective, and God-inspired messages. I don't know about you guys. It's very easy for me to delegate a responsibility that I don't enjoy. Hey, Jude, you're mowing the lawn from now on. Dang it, I'm really going to miss that. No, it was easy for me to delegate to Jude that the front yard is his responsibility each week, because it's not something that I love, that I hold dear to me.
Right.
Now, hey, Jude, I need you to make 4 pies for me. I can't. They all want my boys want me to teach them how to bake. I have no interest in teaching them how to bake because that keeps me from baking. That's just it goes back to pride and selfishness, right? My boys want to learn. I should teach them, but it unleashes this thing that I don't really want to give away to them. So I like to imagine what great leadership Pastor Stu has in seeing the benefit of delegating this sacred responsibility to these young communicators, and again, how much of a gift that is. I think there are. I'm not going to be specific. I think there are pastors out there that would never even conceive of giving the stage and the message to anyone else, let alone young, growing, and developing leaders. So I think that's what's one of the things I love about the church that we have is that gift is so comfortably bestowed upon others because Pastor Stu's committed to the bigger vision.
It's so nice that he's setting that example. That's something I'm in our conversation today, and now thinking about like that in this mindset. He is setting that example for me, really, and for the whole church on how to lead the correct way and really just be able to subvert pride and really show like this is a life that's lived selflessly and raising the next generation.
And I agree with you. The thing I'm looking forward to is the next. If I look at the last 2 weeks of Piece of Cake, man, I can't wait to see where this one's going to go.
Yes.
Right. Well, let me do this. I'm going to send you guys away with a challenge. Then we're gonna sign off. When was the last time you put 39 minutes into conversation with someone else about the experience that you had at church? When was the last time you said, I'm going to sit down at a coffee table or at a table or on the phone, and I'm just going to chat with somebody else about the experience they had at church and really share it? We're modeling a behavior that I hope you guys do. If you go to church and you have a friend at church, don't just talk about why the Lakers got swept. They got swept, right? Did they win one or did they get swept? They got swept.
They got swept.
Yeah, they got swept. But you should be just as committed with that person to plug in with them and talk about what Sunday was like. And if they miss Sunday, saying, dude, let's sit together next week and then let's just go grab coffee after and talk about all the ways that God taught us, grew us, cared for us, loved us as we went through that service experience too. So we're modeling behavior. You guys can have your own mini What's Happening. We're not going to stream it for you, but you should absolutely connect with others and make this thing you experience on Sunday something you talk about during the week. You guys, thanks for joining us. If you're watching this live, thanks for giving us some of your time.
Thank you, Sarah.
Have a good day, and hopefully we will see you Sunday online or in person.
I will see you then, and I'll meet you in the chat.
Yep.
See you then. Bye.
Bye, guys.